well. I want to talk about my trip to Kenya, and I have a really funny story before I even start. I called the embassy in Washington, D.C., I think it was, to find out what requirements, shots, whatever, and I made the mistake of saying Kenya, Africa. I thought this lady was going to bite my head off. It's Kenya. And if you think about it, it's on the continent of Africa, but it is just Kenya. She made that very plain to me. And I told her, I said, I'm really sorry, and she didn't want to hear it. She was just really ticked at me. And I wanted to show you where Kenya is. I don't know, this is a small map, but Kenya is right here. It's right next to Somali. So it's way over here on the African continent. And it's not very big, and the really neat thing is in Kenya, everybody pretty much speaks English because it was a British colony. So everywhere you go, you can talk to people, and we laugh because we had 4 Jeeps, and the people that were in the drivers in the Jeeps were all African or all Kenyan, and they would talk KS Swahili. And we figured out that was so they didn't know what they were saying about the crazy Americans, because they never spoke English when they were talking in between. But they would tell them, hey, we saw a lion over here, we saw this over there, and everybody would, put go. And the Jeep is like this. And I want to make a point of telling you this, because some of them that you see on ads, they're those great big vans, the big long seats. Well, the poor people that sit in the middle have a real hard time taking pictures. Thing comes up. So these guys told us you can stand on the seats, you can stand on the arms, you can do it, you just can't get out of the vehicle. So they would raise this up, and we would just sit there and take pictures. And we stood on the arms to get really good pictures, and it was just, it was really, really great. And so if anybody wants to look at this closer, and then this is a bigger picture of what Kenya looks like. And we actually went to 4 different areas. Trying to go here. The first day we stayed in Nairobi, we went to the elephant orphanage. A lot of the elephants that are killed for tusks, their babies are just left to wander, and so they'll take them to this orphanage, and they were hysterical. They were little babies, and then they were bigger, and as soon as they get big enough, they will, let them go. They'll find a herd that they can go with. And then we went to the home of Karen Bixby. She was the author of Out of Africa. The house was really cool. And when they came and they did a movie about her, the story, they actually furnished some of the furniture that would have been in that time, and the movie company left the furniture. So that was a really cool, different thing. And then we went to hand feed Rothschild giraffes. They've got really long tongues, and they're really rough, and they just, just put your hand on, this big tongue comes out and takes whatever you got in your hand. So that was kind of fun. And then we started going to the preserves. They were either national parks or preserves. And we went to the Samburu, then we went to the Aberdera, and that one I wanted to show you because I don't know, I guess I don't have a real good picture of it. I have a smaller picture. It looks like an ark. And what they do there, which is kind of, they didn't do it because nothing happened, but they have a game viewing wake-up call. 1 ring is if elephants come in. 2 is if they get rhinos. 3 if a leopard or other cat comes in, because leopards are kind of hard to see. People don't see a lot of them. And 4 bells, some other unusual sighting. So can you imagine you're sound asleep in your room, and all of a sudden these buzzers start going off, and what does that mean? And you have to go take your camera and go run and see what it is. But they didn't really go off, but it is, in my small book there, I have a picture of what it looks like. And it does look like an ark. And that was really cool. And they had great food. The whole trip, we only had to buy 2 meals the whole time we were gone for 10 days. And that was both in Nairobi. Other than that, we went to the food was just really, really good. It was really good restaurants. They were usually in the preserves, and it was just really good. And then we went to the Nakakura National Park, and this is where they said there's going to be 1,000 flamingos. And I thought, cool, I'll get some really cool pictures. Well, there weren't any. And we all looked at the guide, and he said, well, it's not because of man. It's because the tectonic plates changed. And when the tectonic plates changed, their food disappeared. So there were maybe 10 there, where they said there's sometimes thousands of them. There weren't any, not a one. And my very, very favorite was Masai Mara National Preserve. And you know, you can see all these different animals. One of the things that our group got to do was we got to see the big five. And I know you're gonna ask me what they are, and I've gotta tell you what they are. Oh yeah, here's the big five. Elephants, lions, leopards, Cape buffalo, and rhinoceros. Now why the Cape buffalo is considered one of the big five, but you've gotta come and see this one down here, because he looks like he's laughing. He's just smiling. He looks like he's laughing. Why they're one of the big five, I'm not sure. You would think there would be some other animal, but that's what they said. And so because on our trip, our guides were surprised, we went in May, which was called the small rainy season. And the only time it rained was when we traveled from one camp to the other, or at nighttime. It never rained when we were out. We had no bugs. It wasn't all that hot. They furnished us water, and we all drank water like crazy. And of course, women, as we get older, one time I looked at my guide and I said, I gotta go to the bathroom. When are we gonna be back? He said, a couple hours. I looked at him and I said, oh, really? And he goes, yeah, okay, I'll stop. You get out of the vehicle real fast, do your stuff in the back before anybody sees you, and get back in this vehicle, because you're not supposed to get out once you're in them. But I would never have lasted 2 hours, never. And one of the cool things that I got to do, there were two things that I thought were exceptional. And one was take a hot air balloon ride. You should have saw me trying to get in this sucker. I've had 2 knee replacements. It was unbelievable. Even getting out was even worse. They looked at me, she said, are you sure you can get out of this? I said, well, I have to get out of there. But you know, they were, well, Benjamin, I said, I can't do that, but I did get out of it. But when you're in one of these things, how many have been in a hot air balloon? When you're in them, they make the loudest noise when they pull those, whatever they call those things down. And so when this happened, we started looking around the ground, because we were up quite a distance. And I didn't see any. I did see I'm trying to think what a bunch of lions are called. Pride. But no big daddies, no big guys with, you know, the big fur. Well, this guy was looking up at the hot air balloon, like, what is that?
Wow.
He was really scared. I mean, he was really crunched down. And then I have another, picture where there's 3 elephants trying to hide behind some trees. I mean, that's what it looks like. They're all crouched by these trees, but they're all looking up, because the noise is so loud. And then one place we were at, we were going, and the guide said, this elephant started to charge us. And it's really cool, because you can tell, and see how he's got his ears flapped? His ears are up, and he was going, and the guy said, did you get it? I went, yeah. He said, good, we're out of here. Because you don't want to hang around with these guys. And so that was cool. And one of the things that I learned about elephants, they only have 6 sets of teeth in their life. And when they lose their 6th set of teeth, they die. And at one point we saw this huge bull elephant. And we said something to the guy, why? Because they're never by themselves, they're always with a couple other elephants. And he said probably he's gonna die soon. And because he was with nobody, and he can't defend himself or anything. And John has a cardiologist that hunts. And I was saying something to him, and he said he does want to go to someplace in Africa and kill an elephant. But he said, I will only do one that's gonna die anyway. He said, I won't, the guides keep on telling him, well, this one's good, it's small. I'm not doing that one, because he said that they got their whole life in front of them. And so I thought that was really interesting. I didn't know that about the lions. And the leopards, here's a big picture of a leopard. And the first time I went to see John's doctor after I went on this trip, he said to me, and I suppose you saw a leopard? And I went, yeah, I did 2 of them. He goes, of all the years that I've gone to Africa, I've never seen one. So this was just, and he was just standing in the road. And you can't honk a horn, you can't holler at them. He just stood right in the middle of the road like, okay, I'm here, take a picture. And it took him the longest time to move. So that was really cool. Because you almost feel like you could go out and touch him. But of course you can't, because that would not be the wisest thing to do. And then the other awesome thing that I did, I really don't have any big pictures. You'll have to come up and look at the ones I have here. Is the Maasai tribe. And this was the chief. And his guys came out. You know, did you ever see that movie where the British are fighting the one African tribe? And the men came out first, and they were all dressed in their costumes, and there's smaller pictures of them in there. And they started their, I don't know what, war dance, whatever. I thought, good heavens, it scared me. And I mean, they weren't going to do anything to us. And then all the women came out and sang us a welcome song. So we walked into their village, and their village, you walk in through a very narrow area, and they have bushes around it to protect them from the wild animals. And you go in, and the cattle are all in the middle because they want to protect them. So wherever you walk through the cow dung everywhere. And it was really interesting. We met the women, and the women are the ones, I have a picture of the house. The women build the houses. Huh? No, this is the tent that in 2 camps we stayed in tents. And one of them had a rotten little monkeys that wanted to get in your tent, and they were just obnoxious. But the women build the houses, and the houses are made of cow dung. They have wooden poles. There's a picture in here somewhere of their house. And the women build the houses, and we happened to get to go in one, talk about hot, and they were making porridge. That's kind of one of their staples is porridge and the cow blood. And they do, with their kids, they do feed them vegetables. That's something that they do. And here's where all the women are greeting us, and then the men. And we had to pay to go. I mean, this wasn't free. And in fact, another 2 people came in another bus thing, and they went with us. I mean, they paid, and boy, the chief was right there getting the money. And I said something to him about, they had said they had just built this new camp, and he said, yes, there's a school not far. And I said something to him about that, or we were talking, and he said, well, you know, we must educate our children so that they can watch out for us. So the man wasn't, you know, they didn't want him to just live the old ways. They had to get with the program, so to speak. And this guy here was our guide. And you can see the Africans, the Kenyans jumping. And every year they have a jumping contest to see who can jump the highest. And whoever jumps the highest gets a wife. And our guide said to us, but they usually get more than they bargained for. And I said, what do you mean? He said, I'm not going any, that's all I'm gonna say. And, but they were really nice. I mean, most of them were, you know, really nice. And, oh, I got a question. You can't look on your phones. Does anybody know what a group of cheetahs is called? You know, a pride is? Lions. What's cheetahs called? Remember, John? Did you remember?
No, I remember. I'm not supposed to.
They're called a coalition.
Wow.
I looked it up on the internet. Yeah, you should sometime. If you're really bored, look up some of it. It's like, what? They're called a what? But they're called the coalition.
I know zebras are called a dazzle.
Yeah, it's just amazing. And like I said, those are the tents that we lived in twice. We stayed a couple nights in each one. But they had foundations, they had bathrooms, they had showers. One of them had these rotten little monkeys. And I have a picture of one of them here. And you had to close down the zipper on your tent, take a carabiner, hook it into that and something else behind there. Because if you didn't and they got in your tent, they would make a mess of it. And I mean, and they were so nervy. They they would come right up to you, and I tried to go sit outside one day. And see, this is how this is the base of a house that one of the ladies was making. It was really fun. The one I went in, they had a special room with a door for a guest, but I'm not staying there, but a guest, and then the rest of it was open. They had like some kind of almost looked like a string or whatever, and then cow or something to cover it. And I mean, if you had children, I don't know where the kids slept. I guess they slept on the floor because they didn't have. Let's see. Oh, and I was telling earlier, one of the girls that was with us, she put her lunch down or her breakfast down on the table on a plate, and went to go get a cup of coffee, and one of the monkeys stole the plate with all of her breakfast on it. And they had natives, and the natives were trying to keep the monkeys away. And in fact, all of the places that have like the where you stay on these big preserves, they have to hire a certain percent of local people. That is the law. You have to hire a certain percent. And we went into this one, and I went, look at that big rock in the road. Shouldn't that be moved? The guy looked at me and he said, Louise, under that rock's a big hole. They don't fix the hole, they just put a big huge rock on the top of it so everybody knows. So the roads weren't really awesomely good shape.
They did it.
Yeah. And
Here they don't.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then let's see, and the people that live off the preserves but close to it, and there were some that actually look like almost like a housing development in one area. If the lion or the animal comes over and kills one of your animals, the government will pay you. But if your animal gets on the preserve and gets killed, they won't. Now, when we were there, it was really dry, so they were letting the local people bring their animals to graze. And when we went on the hot air balloon, because it's so early in the morning, we ran across them as they were getting the cattle off the preserve. And I mean, it's pitch black, you don't know what you're walking into, and here's these cattle. And then the natives following, trying to herd them. So we did see a couple remnants of where an animal had, been on the preserve and met his end. And if the animal gets off the preserve, like I said, then the government will pay the person. And they said, one thing that was interesting, they said that water buffalo are the most dangerous animal to people. And I don't know why. I would think that right after I was there, a hippo killed a woman. And you'd have to be pretty close to that water, because they come out of the water, but the water is their domain. I don't know what happened to them. But like I said, and then this is hand carved. And one of the things that I learned is when you buy hand-carved wood, I forgot, you have to oil these with wax because they dry out, and she is cracking. And when I got her, when a friend of mine said, she looks like she's pregnant, so George became Georgette. And then I got the elephant, and then this is a mask. And these are all hand-carved. They took us to 2 or 3 places. And this, whatever you want to call this I bought this at the equator. There was a little guy sitting at the equator, this is the equator, and he was doing, I don't remember, something, it went one way on one side, and then the other side it did something different. So I bought that at the equator. And then here's another mask. And these are all hand carved. And those places were just interesting, watching these people do that. So, come up and look at the pictures. There's lots of oh, and this is my favorite picture. I forgot my very favorite picture. This is this lioness within 20 feet of a giraffe. Now the lioness can't hurt the giraffe because she's by herself, but a pride of them can kill a giraffe. And so, if you're going to take a trip like this, and I don't want to tell you what you got to do, but make sure that you have, one of the reasons I got all these pictures that I did because I had this camera with this lens. A lot of the people that had just a camera, you can't get close enough. They never would have gotten some of these. So big borrow or steal a big lens for your camera. It's well worth it. I mean, I just had such a good time. And
How long did it take you to get there? Did you go from here or were you living in California?
no, it was from here. We went from here, Wichita to Kansas City to London to Kenya. About 20 hours. Coming back, I have the schedule for coming back because, oh, and I wanted to show you, this is the arc. You can kind of see that it looks like an arc.
Oh, wow.
And,
How long did you go?
huh?
How long did you go
In May,
this year?
no, 2017. Yeah.
What company did you go with?
Gate 1, and I highly recommend them. I mean, they were native people. They knew everything. I mean, we saw an animal, said, what is that? They told us. And they had books. If they didn't know, they would get out the book and they would look it up. And the price, and I'm not bragging about the price, but the airfare from Wichita to Kenya, 10 days, only 2 meals that we have to buy was $4,100.
For two
Now,
people?
huh?
For two people?
No,
Or
one.
each?
But if you go in the Great Migration, it's like 8,000 for the same thing, but that's too many people, I think, because they're just really, but I was gonna read you if I can find it. I brought this, because I had the worst trip coming home that I think I've ever had coming on a trip. We left, we left Nairobi at 11:15 p.m. Now, when you book something with a tour group, you don't always get the most ideal air times.
Right.
Because they're trying to save money, they book you some real humdingers. So we went from Nairobi, and when we went into Nairobi, we went through security, put my shoes back on, thought this is really cool, turned the corner, and they said, now we're going through it again. I went, why? Because the one was Kenya's security, and the other one was British Air. So we had to go through two of them. That was kind of interesting. Then we got into London at 5:55 a.m. Then we left London on, that was the 21st of May. Then on the 22nd of May, we left London at 9:15. Got in to Dallas, Fort Worth at 1:25. But this is Dallas. That was the longest flight, 10 hours and 10 minutes. We sat next to the worst people I've ever sat next to. They had a little boy that they just let him run amok. Just let him run amok. Well, they snoozed or did whatever. So finally, as the plane's starting to land, the steward comes up and he grabs this kid, says, puts him in his seat and said, don't move. And looked at the parents and said, he doesn't move till we land. Because here this little kid was gonna run up and down the aisles. Had us all scared because we all had our arms out to stop him. But the steward took care of it. And then from Dallas to Wichita was only an hour, but they were late. That was the longest flight. It's just, they're really, really long. And like I said, when you go on a tour, the times they pick aren't the best. Because they're looking at ways to, economize on their stuff. But I highly recommend it. It was, I made a comment to somebody about someday I'd like to go there, and they said, well, I happen to know a really great deal, and my husband, bless his heart, he doesn't like to travel. He used to travel all over the world. And he said, so go. So I did, and it was just unbelievable.
How many designers did you?
There were 4 of these, and they were all American, and so we split. There were like 4 to 5 in each deal. And what was really cool is I bought this bracelet just to buy it. But the guys that are guides, they had these specially made for us. There's an American flag on one side and a Kenya flag on the other side. So they gave us, one of the last places we went to a tea plantation, and this house was it was so cool. And they made us lunch. And then the lady, it was really cute, we said, do you use machines to harvest your tea? And she said, no. She said, we must support our local people. She was an older lady, and this had been owned, I believe, by her grandparents originally, and they grew their own tea. So that was just really fascinating. But the people were cordial. Oh, and then they ruined my suitcase. This is kind of a cute story. And they had a great big tear in it, so I went down to the front desk like the day before we were gonna leave, and I said, do you have some tape? I'm thinking, you know, the silver tape stuff. And the guy said, lady, you can't do that. He said, I guarantee you use the suitcase, it's never gonna get there in one piece. So I went, okay, how do I buy another suitcase? And he said, well, for $5, I think it was $5. He had a young man, really nice looking black young man in his little suit. And he said, he will take you to a place to buy your luggage. And he looked at him, and you know, even though they speak English in Kenya, I would never go unless you're on a tour. It's a pretty scary place. And the guy looked at him and he said, and you, do not leave her alone. Yes, sir. So we got in this thing and we went to this store, and you had to go through security, you know, to get into the store. And of course, there's all black people. And this is like, I don't know, I don't remember if it was dark. I don't remember what time of the day it was. But we walked in, and of course, everybody turns to look at us. So we go look, and we go find the suitcases, and we walk over to get a suitcase, and I finally picked one out. I wanted one. When the sign-up thing said you couldn't have suitcases with wheels. Well, if you ever get on a deal and they tell you that, contact them, because they'll tell you yes if you say you can't have the one without wheels. Because that was murder trying to lug a big suitcase that didn't have wheels. So I bought one that had wheels, and so the guy told the clerk she wants this suitcase, and they said, okay, we'll bring it up to you. And so we're kind of standing there waiting, and the guy said, what the heck are they doing? I said, I don't know. He said, don't move. I went, I won't move. So he goes running back there, and he said, well, what they were doing is they were taking all the paper out of the inside, making sure it was good, because he said what happens, a lot of people buy them, ruin them, and then want to bring them back. And I mean, of course, as we walked out of the store, everybody watched us leave. So I would not want to go there. And the other thing that they did in Kenya, they closed the bars cannot open till 6 o'clock at night. They have to close at 2 in the morning. When they first got their independence, they used to be open up all day. Well, guess what? Nobody went to work. Everybody went to the bars, so it's a law. You cannot be open till after 6 o'clock. But you'll see almost like a canopy. I have a picture of it in the little books. A canopy, and there'll be guys on motorcycles just sitting there doing nothing. So it's, even though they speak English, I would not go there only on a tour, because you know the guys know where to go, and they watch out for you. I mean, they watched out for us whenever we were in a town or anything like that. They took really good care of us. So that's it. Come and look at the pictures. I had a blast taking them, and they're really, and I saw everything. The cheetahs.
They're awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Louise.
I love taking pictures. I love
So, were you a
taking pictures.
photographer before this trip? I mean, did you already know how to work the camera?
Oh yeah. I've gone to England, and I just went through and got rid of a whole bunch of pictures, because my kids someday are gonna go, what the heck did she take a picture of this for? And I got rid of them, but I've always taken, one time I took it, when I